Hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kat, and today I am doing my very late February wrap-up. So I focused mostly on Black voices and authors in February because it was Black History Month. So 10 of the 12 books I'm going to talk about today are from Black voices. This is in the order that I read them, not necessarily the order from worst to best. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So the very first book that I read in February was Femme Like Her by Fiona Zedde. This is a Black female-female romance. So we are following Nyla Grant, who is a self-proclaimed femme who only dates studs, which previously to reading this book, I didn't know the difference between femmes and studs, but I learned in this book. Yet when Nyla meets a femme named Scotty, she is wondering if she should take a chance or stick to her rules. I found this extremely hot. The steam in here was next level. The compatibility between the main two characters was excellent. However, there was a lot of drama surrounding their relationship. So Nyla, the main character, she has drama with an ex of hers and also racing her Camaro at dangerous speeds, which is like not safe. And then the love interest, Scotty, she has drama with her family life. At first I gave this 4 stars because I was just so blown away by how steamy it was, but I think it brought it down to a 3.5 star overall. And I should also say that this has a huge misunderstanding trope which the plot like hinges on. So if you like that or not, that would also impact your enjoyment of this book. So the next book that I read after that was also a romance. This is Learned Reactions by Jayce Ellis. This is a Black male-male love story. And this one, whereas the first one was super hot, this one is super gooey sweet. So we're following Carlton, who is really excited to get back to the bachelor life because the last few years he's been raising his nephew and helping him graduate and go to university. So he's excited to be a bachelor again, and he's finally looking to spend time with his best friend named Dion, who is coming into town for his nephew's high school graduation. And when Dion comes into town, we switch to like Dion's perspective, and Dion is a professor and he has been in love with Carlton like basically since they met in university, 20 years. So there's 20 years of pining, and they had a one-night stand, but they decided not to take anything further, mostly because Carlton is really scared of commitment and changing their friendship. However, when they are both visiting for the graduation, the niece shows up on the doorstep and is like, will you please adopt me because I don't want to live with my grandparents anymore. And as it turns out, for adoption, it's better if you look like a couple instead of a single father. So he asks if Dion can pretend to basically be in a fake relationship with him. So it is very kind of messy, but very sweet, 20 years of unresolved pining. I loved it, and I gave this 4 stars. I thought it was so sweet, so tender. The only part I didn't like was at the end, just went like off the rails sweet, where I was like, oh my god, the level of saccharin right now is astounding. But, I mean, obviously, it has a very happy ending. It is so sweet. And it's just, their relationship is based on mutual respect and just love for one another as like a friend, as a human, and then as something more, and it's just so good. You should read it. The next book that I read or listened to is The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. This is about multiverse travel. So Kara is what they call a pigeon, where on alternate worlds, her multiple selves have died. So you can travel to whichever worlds your doppelganger has died on. So she travels to all these different worlds to collect information on the world, which can help predict how things are going like on her own world. As you can probably guess, things are not peachy keen in this multiverse travel situation, so Kara is starting to investigate and discover things she shouldn't. We listened to the audiobook driving around and moving house. This was so good. I highly recommend the audiobook. One of my favorite things about the audiobook is just how sassy you can hear Kara being and how she is talking and interacting with others. She is so strong. She also happens to be either bisexual or pansexual. It doesn't specify which one, but she has in the past dated men and women. We also have a really, really great utopia, dystopia juxtaposition, if you like that sort of thing. Some elements that I wasn't such a huge fan of. A few times you do need to suspend disbelief for character motivations, and then the villain is pretty much who you think the villain is the whole time, kind of like very cut and dry. Also, I did not guess the ending. It went in a direction I did not suspect, and it was excellent. I thought it was really great, and I highly recommend the audiobook. So the next book I read was Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh. I buddy read this with Sian from Sian Time and also Alicia from Alicia Reads. And I have mixed feelings about this. So Ottessa Moshfegh is a really great writer when you want to discover ways that people can be gross, like gross humans. She writes the minutia of everyday life just in a really gritty way that feels very true to life. So we're following Eileen, who is this woman who is in a very abusive family situation. Her mother has passed away. Her dad is sliding into dementia, but he also is just like treating her horribly. And she has a lot of personal issues that she's definitely not taking the time to sort out. And she is working as a secretary in a adolescent prison or like a juvenile detention facility, and she runs into a woman that she slowly becomes obsessed with because this woman seems really put together, and she wants to kind of emulate her, and things take a turn from there. Overall, I felt quite mixed about this because I thought some of the character motivations were really weak, but I do quite love Moshfegh's writing style. So for me, I gave this 3 stars, and I recommend My Year of Rest and Relaxation over Eileen, but I'm really glad I read it, and I will probably read everything Moshfegh comes out with because I just think that her writing style is phenomenal. After that, I picked up Fairy Tales and Space Dreams by Jasmine, Shea, Townsend, and this is a collection of short stories, I believe 3 fairy tales and 3 sci-fi stories, which rework these tales to a more Afrofuturism lens, so centering black characters as Cinderella, or as a mermaid, or as a star. I actually read, I think, the first story or the second story, but ultimately there are 2 reasons why this is a DNF for me. One is that the writing style is a little unedited, I would say, so this could have done with some tightening. The other thing is that I thought that this would be, since it was reframing narratives for a black lens, I thought that it would also be reframing for a feminist lens, but that is not the case. So that's my mistake. I thought that the princesses wouldn't need the princes anymore and this kind of thing, but they do. So I was just kind of let down. I didn't really think that I wanted to continue on, but I will definitely be donating this somewhere and someone else will get a lot of joy out of this. So yeah, this was a DNF. The next book that I picked up was Sorrowland by River Solomon. I was so extremely lucky and happy to get the ARC from NetGalley. So this is actually coming out May 4th. And we are following Vern, who is heavily pregnant and fleeing the Black excellence cult that she is a part of. So it's a cult that focuses on Black history and Black education, but also, as cults do, on restricting and tying members down when they sleep at night. So, there's a lot of cons with the pros. Anyway, Vern is escaping into the forest where she gives birth to twins, and the story goes from there. As people from the cult are coming after her, she's trying to escape, she's trying to raise the twins, she's trying to find her own way and find her friend who managed to escape the cult earlier. So there were just so many things about this book. I could not for the life of me figure out where I was going to rate it, how I would even go about doing that. There are so many things that I loved and so many things that I didn't love at the same time. So I'm just gonna kind of give you an idea of what I loved, what I didn't love, and then I guess you can decide if it would be interesting to you or not. So one of the things I loved is that the characters are very diverse. So Vern is an albino black main character who is quite young when she gives birth. And she is disabled as well. She has eyesight difficulties as well as chronic pain. And then there is also a friend of hers that then turns into more, who is a Lakota Winked, which is two-spirit. And then it's also talking a lot about Vern not wanting to label her children as a boy or a girl, or he or him, she, her, which I thought was really interesting, and I haven't seen a lot of commentary on that in fictional stories. Another thing that I really loved was a lot of the book is focusing on Vern being pregnant, giving birth, and then raising her children. But there is no male gaze in this book at all. It was so refreshing. Like, there was not one mention of pendulous breast swinging. Like, it was so great. My favorite aspect of it was the body horror and transformation series that we have in here. Favorite top 2 body transformation things that I have ever read, ever. I just thought it was so epic, so cool. This would make an excellent movie element if it ever becomes a movie. That would be amazing. As well as the author is black and non-binary. This also focuses heavily on the systematic abuse and trauma of black people throughout US history and beyond. However, that leads us into the parts that I didn't like so much, which was sometimes the plot and the pacing suffered for how much Solomon was trying to focus on the historical aspects and telling us about these things. It really sometimes slowed down the pacing. Action scenes were often bracketed by info dumping, and the info dumping was often done in intergenerational memories, which is a very cool delivery style, but it is still info dumping, which some people are totally fine with it and they don't even realize it, but I definitely am not a fan. And the last thing I have to say is that the ending was a little rushed and anticlimactic, but I really don't think the ending was the point of the novel at all. So I am waiting to hear what everyone else thinks, because I gave this 3.5 stars. I think that there were things that I really loved about it, and there were things that I wish had been done differently. After that, I decided to seek out black nonfiction, specifically about black lesbian culture, because lesbian literature and culture is something I think I know the least about. So I was lucky enough to get the arc called Mouths of Rain, an anthology of black lesbian thought. This is coming out February 23rd, so it's out now. And this is a collection, an anthology of all different types of media. So you have poems, you have fictional short stories, you have memoirs, you have critical essays, you have thought pieces, you have academic essays, you have the whole spread in here about black lesbian culture and voices. I learned so many things that I didn't know. Like, I felt like every single story was teaching me something new, whether it's an intersection between feminism and black experiences and lesbian culture, or whether it was learning about what black, lesbian, or queer academics had to go through, or about historical topics that I didn't know about before then. I highly recommend it. One of the favorite things that I learned was that Audre Lorde is the shit. She's amazing, and I need to read more Audre Lorde, apparently. I also learned things that infuriated me about the way that she was treated in like the places that she worked. It just will make you so mad. This one was really hard for me to get through, actually, for 2 main reasons. One is that a lot of the topics just infuriated me beyond measure. Also, I wanted to give myself enough time to soak them in. And then the second reason is because some of the more academic essays were very dense. it's hard to switch from poetry to fictional story to academic essay for me personally. But I highly recommend this anthology, especially if you're looking for more lesbian Black voices. I'm very glad that I read it. The next book I picked up, I wanted to be a bit lighter, so I went for YA, although I don't know if lighter is exactly the word I would use. This is the only book that made me cry. So I read The Weight of the Stars by Ancrum, who is one of my favorite authors. We know this. So I was expecting to be damaged by this book, and I really was. We are following Ryan Bird, who is growing up with her small family, so her brother and his baby, in a trailer park, and she is just trying to make ends meet so that they can graduate high school and take care of the baby and just make sure everything is squared away. When suddenly her teacher pulls her aside and asks her to befriend the new girl who is named Alexandria. And it just so happened that when Alexandria was born, her mother went on a one-way space trip to deep space. So every day she climbs up on her house to catch radio signals from her mother. So this is about the two of them and also their friend group, which is just so lovely to see. I don't know how Ancrum writes such amazing characters, and you just feel for every single one. They're all really unique. They just feel like I have met these people, I am friends with these people, and I know them personally. So this obviously has an FF slow burn romance, and there are also many other characters who are all different queer identities and mixed race and POC side characters. Ryan drives a motorcycle as well as flies a plane, so she's like the dream. And there is also the found family trope, which I really love if done right, and Ancrum, her characters are just amazing. And also one of my favorite characters in here was Ryan's brother, who is selectively mute and is also raising his son while going to school, and I just loved their family dynamics and also the friend group really banding together and giving each person in the group the support that they need. I just loved this book, and I give it 4.5 stars. I really wish that I had had more time. I would have read 100 more pages. Like, I love Ancrum's writing style so much, and I love her characters, and I can't wait to read the next one that she writes. I'm really hoping, fingers crossed, I'm really hoping that it follows Ryan's brother. That would be amazing. Next, I decided to pick up some poetry. So this is Hum by Jamaal May, and this is a machine themed poetry collection, which if you know anything about me, I really love machine imagery or like human AI, human machine themes. So this immediately caught my attention. Also, the cover is absolutely beautiful, and I really loved this. Of course, not every poem did it for me, but overall I gave it 4 stars because there were a lot of poems in here that I really loved. So the title Hum is actually the theme of the poetry collection, where it's talking about different ways that machines and people hum and what makes it hum, and there is a lot of life and death imagery in here. There is more war imagery than I was prepared for. That one I didn't like as much, but all of the machine, hum, love, anger, death, electricity imagery was really up my alley. So I'm just gonna read you the first 2 lines of How to Disappear Completely, which was my favorite poem. So it says, "You are quarter ghost on your mother's side. Your heart is a flayed peach in a bone box." I love it. I love that. Yeah, so if you're into poetry, especially looking for Black poetry that is a bit dark and has machine themes, then I recommend this. This I gave 4 stars, and it was great. So after that, I picked up The Sound of Stars by Alicia Reads, and this one is about an alien invasion, and they are taking over the world. They have electricity-based powers, and our main character is Ellie, and she lives in a compound which is one of the last remaining human compounds, and it is under control of the alien race called the Ilori, and she has done something very naughty, and she keeps a secret library that she smuggles to her fellow prisoners, and one day an alien who's doing a patrol stumbles upon her stash, but he tells her he's not going to turn her in because he wants her to get music for him, because he has a secret naughty hobby as well, which is to listen to forbidden human music. So I have a lot of thoughts about this. Some of the things that I really liked is, of course, the human alien, it's basically alien AI, so they're lab-made aliens, and I really liked the two main characters. So Ellie is demisexual, pan-romantic, plus-size, black. She's 17-year-old, and she has hypothyroidism, anxiety, and panic attacks. And then Morris is the alien lab maid, and he has a soft spot for music, feelings, and romance. He's basically just like a mushy teddy bear alien. And this book started out so strong. I think the first third of this, when they're in the compound and they're developing kind of the dynamics and the world, it was very strong. And then it devolves into an insta-love romance road trip, which, who saw that coming? Not me. I was not ready. So the things that I didn't like about this was that this is cheese level 11. This made me feel such secondhand embarrassment. There is insta-love by one of the characters, and it's just really cringy, like singing each other love songs non-ironically. I was just feeling so embarrassed and cringing. There's also a really heavy focus on a made-up band in here, their lyrics and their songs, and I just did not care at all. And then this also ends on a cliffhanger, which, okay, I didn't know that. So yeah, I gave this 3 stars. I was honestly a little let down because it was quite different than what I was thinking it would be, and the first third was so good. Read this at your own discretion, I guess. If any of those things that bothered me don't bother you, then go for it. So the second to last book I read in February was Composite Creatures by Carolyn Hardaker, who is an English writer, and this is also a NetGalley ARC I got. This is out April 13th, I believe, and this is following a couple who has newly moved in together, and we are in a UK where there is ecological collapse. So there's a lot of pollution, there are no more animals, and they are going to take part in this very controversial program where they are given a composite creature to raise. And as far as we know, it's kind of like, its name is Nut, and it's kind of like a stitchwork mouse, ferret, lizard thing. It's very weird. And you get kind of these vibes that things are going to be creepy with Nut. Not everything is good with the couple. Also, the program that they're in is obviously going to be shady. However, this was a DNF for me, and I DNF'd this at 55%, which was 220 pages. And at the time that I decided to stop reading, okay, the creepiness of Nut was only hinted at. Nothing had actually happened. Nothing as of 220 pages was developed at all. And then on top of that, there was absolute glacial pacing. That I feel like this novel should have been cut down by half, and things just should have been taken out. It was so slow, so slow. And I really couldn't care less about the 2 main characters. I wasn't attached to either one of them. And then all of the creepy things that I thought were going to happen, like there's so many instances where a creepy thing could happen, and the cover leads you to believe this is going to be very creepy. Nothing happened. Nothing was happening. Nothing was happening. So I was like, I really just can't continue. I was reading this book alongside the other books for about 2 weeks, I want to say, and I was just like, no, that's it. I'm DNFing, this is just not for me. And apparently I am alone, because if you look at the ratings, which I'm looking at right now, this has a 4.67 on Goodreads. And everyone is rating it 4 or 5 stars only. There's nothing lower than that. And yeah, I DNF'd it. So I don't rate DNFs, but if I was gonna rate it, it would be 2 or lower. So I don't agree with everyone else, and yeah, this was a DNF, and I really don't recommend. However, the last book I read in February, I highly recommend to everyone. It is on my best books of the year list, and I'm very glad I read it. I don't have it because I finished it and then it was due at the library that day and someone else had reserved it and I was like, curses! So this is what it's called, Growing Up African in Australia, and it is a collection of short stories documenting people's journey from the African diaspora and also Black diaspora to Australia, which is very interesting to me to learn about Black experiences but also immigration experiences into Australia, because I am also an immigrant to Australia, but obviously I'm not Black. I came from, oddly enough, Japan, but I'm white. So this was fascinating. This was so good. I highly recommend it to everyone. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what was so amazing, but all of the stories were so important. And these are immigration stories from, I wrote down every single country that different people were from, and some of the countries were multiple. So it covers people immigrating from Brazil, Central African Republic, Egypt, Ghana, Guyana, Jamaica, Kenya, Papua New Guinea, Somalia, South Africa, Sudan, Uganda, Yemen, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. And there are just a full range. So it could be about their family journey, it could be about them feeling disconnected from their family. It could be about queer intersections. It could be about feminist intersections. It could be about how they were treated at university, or, you know, just anything. And some of these stories were so strong, they made me have to put the book down for a while and just sit with it, because I was so furious and so just shocked that different people are treated that way. And some of these stories are positive and some of them paint Australia in a negative light. So there's a full mixed bag in here. But it really taught me so much about so many different countries, customs, and how they adapted their African or like Black diaspora customs to Australian life. And it's not also just Melbourne or Sydney. Some of the people moved to small towns, some of them are cities, some of them have never seen the ocean before, some of them moved to the middle of Australia and are like, where is the ocean? So there were just so many stories and I highly recommend it. I gave this 4.5 stars. It is so strong and I think almost every single story was really engaging and did really grip me and I wanted to know more. And also it gives you a great resource for people that you could follow. Like one of them is a imam who is opening up spaces for queer Muslim youth to feel connected and feel welcome, because he realized he was gay and he was going to be shunned, but in Australia he can open up this kind of center and like fighting to get funding and that kind of stuff. There's just so much to learn about and I loved this collection. I really highly recommend it. Yeah, so those are the 12 books that I read or attempted to read in February. Let me know if you're going to pick any of them up. Also, let me know what your favorite books of February were. Let me know the really good ones. And I will chat to you in another video soon. Bye!